Yes, as James said, I'm Anne Gowan and I'm responsible for the paid content of The Guardian. As you know, we have what we call open journalism, and that's one of our challenges, and that's what we'll be talking about throughout this presentation and how we meet that. And also really the newspaper industry in general. We've all got different solutions, as it were, or we're trying different methods of monetising the digital challenge that we have in different ways. So the newspaper industry, this is information from Forrester from May of this year. Our readership and migration to digital channels is really sort of accelerating, I think, more than most other publishing businesses. The combined circulation of print editions of national newspapers fell by almost 25% in the last 5 years. And there was obviously a recession, but I think the challenge of digital is obviously what's driving this change. However, print is still a hugely valuable market to us at over £2 billion just last year. So it's still the biggest source of our revenue. What we need to do is to sustain that for as long as possible while we work through this transition. In contrast, a constant sample of newspaper websites has seen daily unique visitors grow by almost 150% in the last 4 years. So you can see where the direction of travel is, and it's actually how we monetize that, how we retain our audience, and how we engage them. At The Guardian, we are one of the leading quality daily titles. The Observer is one of the oldest titles. It's a Sunday newspaper, started more than 200 years ago. The Guardian's been going from 1821, starting as the Manchester Guardian. It's a very established business, but also it's always been moving with its times, agile, first Sunday supplements, etc. So now the challenge is to take that forward. We still do a lot of traditional business through things like Guardian Weekly, which is our overseas title, which is a weekly summary of The Guardian, Le Monde and The Washington Post, and that still is quite a nice little revenue business for us. The website's hugely popular. Against the general trend, we are still open and not operating a paywall system. So what we need to do is to create value in our paid products to make people want to buy them in an environment where they get news free and content free on the website. So it's actually how to engage, how to involve those people, and then how to bring them through into a direct relationship where we can actually pull them through to subscription and paid content. We're part of Guardian Media Group, which is owned by the Scott Trust, and the Scott Trust also owns Top Right, which was the half of EMAP, which we kept, and also the Trader Group, which is Auto Trader, etc. So quite a big group. At The Guardian, we have over 200,000 paid subscribers across our print and app products. So what is open? Open journalism is our commitment to how we deliver the news. It's a way of engaging people, and it's a way of getting eyes across The Guardian. It's a way of opening up the audience. What our objective is to keep that audience wide and broad, and then pull them in and engage them and draw them through. It's put us into, the digital space is also one where we have gone into a different competitor set, as James alluded to. We are still in the traditional newspaper market competing with Mail Online, for example, but we're also against BBC, which is another free content provider. We are against sort of international competition, the Huffington Post, New York Times, etc., although we work quite closely with the New York Times on some of our sharing of information, and also other channels like Google and so on. So we are in a whole different arena, really. So what is open journalism? It's really about encouraging participation as well as broadening our audience. It's actually trying to engage them with us through comment, through eyewitness reported stories. We even at The Guardian have masterclasses and training in how to, so our audience, both online and also actual physical events, can learn how to take better photographs, to write pieces, to tweet, etc., and to develop a knowledge of digital journalism. So we're actually trying to bring that content through into a sort of more professional, credible environment, if you like, and create a knowledge of readers in doing so. So a story starts and readers may provide some of that information. It doesn't necessarily start with journalists, although they will be editing it, developing the story, sharing it, and then spreading it. So again, there's a whole sort of circle of participation going on there, which is international. And how does it impact on us? It opens up our content across a number of channels. It encourages participation, and as I've mentioned, hopefully the intention is to deepen our relationship with readers. And so the impact of Open and the Guardian values on direct, which is all the paid subscription and paid content, is that we have to create value within that content. So we have to develop packages that are either suitable as editions, where we curate the content from the start, for our iPad edition, for example, or we have something where the package is suitable for the audience, so print and digital. We've now launched our Freemium Apps, so we have paid apps and we have free apps and we have signed-in apps, which give you different levels of experience of The Guardian. So again, it's not actually discounting, although we do some of that as well, but it is actually premium pricing. We're the most expensive daily newspaper, and we also focus on return on investment. So we're always looking at, if we do acquisition, what is the conversion rate and what is the attrition rate, really. So our values can influence what we do. We decided to pull our Facebook campaigns in support of editorial support of womenactionmedia.org. Also, a number of other brands did that as well, because our ads were being placed next to inappropriate imagery and so on. And Facebook did actually change their policies as a result of not just our, but other brands doing the same thing. So we do have, our values do sort of permeate the other things that we do. And that really also relates to the values of our audience, we hope, too. All of this encourages participation and sort of vocal participation by our subscribers as well. So again, we want to be open with them, keep them well informed, and make sure that everything is really as sort of obvious and above board as we can make it. The other challenge we have is editorial. I think not just in The Guardian, but in lots of newspapers are quite concerned about being too commercial. But here we have this probably more than others. So some of the opportunities that others of our competitors have, for example, this masthead with the subscription. If you probably won't be able to see it even, there's a tiny little reference to our subscription on the top of the masthead of The Guardian. And that is actually changing, but we're having to do a lot of testing and break down barriers, and so that's like a sort of a start, and we're moving on from that, which is great. So the importance of commercialising Open is the actual grow part of this is accessing a bigger audience and what we call progressives, which I'll come on to later, converting those into a deeper relationship with The Guardian, whether it's web, print, app, etc., and then retaining it. The average revenue per user is both based on other things that we sell to them, reader offers, our books, our masterclasses, obviously the subscription products. And then again, our advertising revenue, because our advertising value goes up per user depending on how engaged they are, as well as other sort of demographics and interest profiles. And so, definitions, the Grow group, these are people who maybe have not read the paper in the last year, they visited the website in the last 6 months. They are people who have an experience of The Guardian, but it's not very close. The Deepen group, they buy occasionally. There's a greater frequency, and they are probably more likely for us to work on as prospects immediately for subscription. And again, the retained group, this is where, from a subscription perspective, we try and bring these people through into a deeper relationship, whether it's online, via the apps, for mobile, or whether it's print. And then, how do we actually define progressives? We don't actually target people in this way, but this is the audience that we think of when we're looking at our communications and so on. And this is based on our audience insight team and their research. So they fit 5 out of 6 of these statements. Basically, they're intellectually curious. So it's important to be well informed. We should strive for equality. When I need information, I look on the internet. All of those things are important, really, for us. And then the scale of the audience, this is per month. So we have registered users. This is slightly out of date, so I'm sorry to say that it's probably changed slightly since then, but in a positive way, I have to say. But registered users, 1.5 million in the UK, and the Guardian database has 3.5 million individuals on it. Our current Guardian UK audience is just over 10 million, and that's on the website and in print, etc. And then the grow element, the progressives where we're trying to actually draw them in further, are the people who look like our Guardian audience, the occasional, where we're trying to develop and engage them further. And then finally, the total sort of GB audience for quality news content. So that's much broader, really, than we would aim at. But we really want to know what the size and scope of the market and the universe is, and what our potential is. So, how to tackle being open? I'm going to hand over to my colleague Lucy, who's going to talk about this and also present some case studies that we've run.
Okay, so as Anne said, Anne's given you a really great introduction to what open journalism is and some of the wider impacts that it has on us, but I'm going to talk a bit more specifically about how we tackle open journalism by being open to, and also, as Anne said, give you some case studies. So I'm going to look at 3 different areas where open affects us, so both in terms of how we communicate pricing, how we are open in terms of the offers and the way that we communicate with our subscribers, and then thirdly, the biggest area for us when it comes to open journalism is when it comes to differentiating mobile products and pricing. So the main way that we tackle open journalism is by having a really clear pricing strategy. We make sure that we have parity pricing across acquisition and retention, which is really, really important to us. We make sure that we have a really clear pricing strategy across platforms. Our most expensive products are our bundled subscriptions, followed by print only, and then our mobile products. Our mobile products are significantly cheaper than our print only products, but we still do place quite high emphasis on those being quality products, so they do have a significant price each month for people to pay. And also we make sure that we limit the amount of price points that we have for each package. Definitely, I know from moving to magazines to newspapers, one of the biggest things that I noticed is the amount of choice that everyone has between the different packages they can have. So we try and keep that as clear and open as possible by just limiting the amount of price points we have. We make sure that we're open with our subscribers and really, really look after them. We make them feel valued by adding value to their subscriptions all the time. As Anne said, they really do pay a premium price, so it's really important that we keep investing in those products for them. We always keep them up to date with product developments, which again is just reminding them of the value that's being added. And we make sure that acquisition and retention work really closely together on joined up campaigns, which I'm going to talk to you about a little bit more in a minute. And then, as I said, we try and work really closely with acquisition and retention on campaigns, and we try and think outside the box when we're doing our acquisition offers. So if there's ever any way that we can extend those to existing subscribers within the budgets that we have, we definitely try and do that. And I think above all, we try and be honest and upfront with our customers. There's definitely always a feeling that goes around that you shouldn't give people excuses if something goes wrong, and I definitely think that's true, but if there's a reason for having to do something or making a decision, then we kind of always put our hands up and make that as clear as possible to our customers, because they do care. These are just some examples of communications that I've talked about. So we've got examples of where we send our customers messages explaining that they've had new additions put into their subscription. So this is when we added some value into the bundle products. Same, the second one is to a communication we sent to iPad subscribers when we'd added some extra supplements into their edition. And then we try and do monthly surprise and delight communications to our subscribers, giving them money off or freebies when we have them available. And we also extend that to Guardian Weekly as well, which is our international customers. They're massively important to us, and we try to make sure that they realise they're just as loved as the daily subscribers. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is around pricing, both in terms of how we're open with our customers when it comes to pricing, but also how we try and work really closely between acquisition and retention. So in January 2013, our cover price went up. So during January to March, we focused on an acquisitions campaign around Beat the Price Rise. We went out with a campaign where we were offering standard prices and also pushing people to take out bundles because they're very good value for us and we get a good return on investment from that. We really tried to stick with the Guardian ethos of having quite witty, topical creative, which I will show you some examples of in a minute. And then in March, we started to put our prices up for our existing subscribers and also, again, focused on moving people onto bundles. We treated it very much as one campaign and worked across acquisition and retention very closely together. And the results were just really, really successful for us. We managed to get over 2,000 new bundle subscribers added on at standard price without offering an extra incentive, which we were really, really pleased with. And even more importantly, the price rise to existing subscribers worked really well. We had just 5% of people cancelling, which we were really, really impressed with. Obviously, none would have been better. So here are some examples of some of the creative that we did. So it's definitely very much very open, explaining to people that prices were going to be going up, and this was their opportunity to really take advantage of getting a great deal. And it also just fit really well with the way that Guardian likes to speak to customers, being playfully intelligent, we like to call it. And these are some examples of some of the communications that we sent out to existing subscribers. Going back to what I said about being really open with why you have to put prices up, we did a split test where we sent a longer letter that explains a lot about the Guardian's values, our position as being owned by a trust, and why we have to kind of keep investing in quality journalism, against a shorter letter which was much more about the prices are going up, this is what it's going to be, this is how you can contact us if you've got any questions. And we did get a significantly better significantly lower cancel rate when we took the time to explain to people a bit more about why we have to put prices up. So the second case study I'm going to talk to you about is more about how we work closely between acquisition and retention to offer value to our customers, but also to communicate with existing customers and make sure that we're looking after them. So something that we've been working on a lot recently is trying to boost our press conversions by offering free gifts to our subscribers. We've been getting some really good results and we wanted to roll it out across a multi-channel campaign. We were really, really wary that our existing customers would complain about this. As Anne said, they're very vocal with us and they don't hold back in giving us feedback. So when we looked to do a campaign, we were working with Taste Cards, and we've approached them about doing a campaign across acquisition and retention. We managed to negotiate a free annual taste card for all new subscribers, but also a 3-month trial taste card for all our existing customers. Again, this approach worked really, really well. We got a significant number of new subscribers, but we also had really good result from existing subscribers claiming their trial offer. And most importantly, we had really low churn of existing customers moving on to this new offer and minimal complaints from existing subscribers and actually a lot of positive feedback. So it's definitely a really good approach for working with customers. Again, here's some examples of creative that we ran. So again, we were really trying to kind of fit with that Guardian way of being a bit playful with our customers and pushing this offer to them. And then in terms of what we did with existing subscribers, so we sent them a free code for an offer. They didn't need to contact us to claim it or anything. They could just go online and do that. And as you can see, we got some really nice feedback from some of our subscribers, which worked really well for us, but also really well for Taste Card because people saw the value in it and were intending to carry on subscribing afterwards. And then the final case study I want to talk to you about is around freemium, which, as Anne kind of alluded to earlier, is the model that we're moving to for our mobile subscriptions. So this has probably been the most confusing area that our customers and us, to an extent, have had to deal with when it comes to our open strategy. All of our, up until August this year, so all of our mobile apps and editions were paid for the iOS platform, so iPhone and iPads. All of our web access was completely free, and all of our Android apps were free. So it's very confusing, and the poor people that are on iOS were kind of being penalised a little bit by having to pay for everything while everyone else was getting it for free. So in August we decided to move to a freemium model for both iPhone and Android apps. This meant that our editions are still paid for, web remained free, and the live news apps went free with a premium tier added. The premium tier has no advertising in it, and it also has some premium and exclusive content. What this means now is it's a lot more clearer for our customers. What we're focusing on now is, rather than differentiating between print being paid and web being free and mobile kind of being half and half, is by saying that all editions, so content that's actually been created and put together as a single edition, are paid for, and our live news is moving to a free model. So it's a lot clearer for people. We've been working really closely with product, PR and brands to communicate these changes, both in terms of updates to existing subscribers that are on bundles and letting them know how it will affect them there, creating new ad campaigns, and one of the most kind of easiest things to forget, but one of the kind of key things that we worked on was making sure that we had really clear communications via blogs and FAQs, where we were making sure that we were addressing tricky questions. So again, here's some examples of creative that we've run, both in terms of trying to explain the new premium access and how people can try that. So we're very much trying to still sell a product where the main product is free, but also the communications that we send to existing subscribers, just reminding them that they're getting extra value because now they can access Android products as well. And then, yeah, these are just a couple of examples of how we've tackled things through blogs and feedback, which is obviously really important. I mean, we can see that historically from this this post that we have, that people there have always been people that have understood the benefit of paying extra for mobile content and for our news, but it's something that we really need to work on now, that we're just making sure that now we've made these changes, that we're getting the same kind of feedback from people, and people really understand why things have to be paid for and why some of the areas are free. So I just wanted to leave on a few tips on how other people can be open to, and that doesn't mean ripping down paywalls if you have them, but I think just making sure that you're not afraid of speaking to subscribers, even people that are paying on direct debit. I know in the magazine world there was always a bit of a fear of speaking to your continuous payment customers in case they forgot that they had a subscription. So the ways that you can speak to your subscribers are make sure that you surprise and delight them as often as you can. Keep reminding them when extra features and products are added. It just reminds them that they're getting continuous value from the products that they're paying for. And ask them what they think. This is something that we do a lot and get massive amounts of value from it, both in terms of the value that our subscribers feel, but also all the extra data and information that we're able to collect on our customers, which helps us so much when it comes to planning campaigns and also planning new products. Always make sure that acquisition and retention work really closely together. It's too easy for them to become separate teams, but I think that's probably the most important thing you can do, and just co-campaign wherever possible to reduce the risk of churn. It's something that could be done everywhere that you offer an acquisition incentive, and it doesn't need to be exactly the same product. You can offer a slightly less version of it. Don't avoid tricky questions. I really do believe that if people understand why you do things, they're much more receptive to it. And be brave about your pricing strategy. As Anne said earlier, we're definitely, out of all of our competitors, the most expensive. But at the same time, if you kind of stick to your guns and explain why quality journalism is worth paying for, and keep adding value to your subscriptions, then I think you can kind of get away with it. This is just a bit of a quote from Alan Rusbridger about what open journalism means and why we believe in it, which is quite nice. So that's that, and Just finally, if anyone does want to find out a bit more about open journalism, we have an award-winning film about it that's how much we believe in it. We've made a film about it. But if anyone wants to have a look at that, it's a really nice watch. And that's us. So. So I think we've got some time for questions, so I'm going to invite Anne back up.
Yes.
If anyone has any, then...
Yes, if anyone has any questions, so we're happy to answer anything, or more or less anything, unless it's commercially sensitive.
Do you see a time when there's actually very little new content being added in by your journalists and you actually end up curating rather than producing the majority of the content? Or do you see a time where the curated side of the content is going to overtake the...
I don't think, well, I think in volume terms, possibly, but I think we'd probably always lead on the front news, which is the as you'd call the homepage, and the main stories will probably always be professional journalists, and that's really because I think they're the ones with the professionalism and connections and so on. However, I think from a volume perspective, I think there will be an increasing amount of user-generated content. So yes, in volume terms, I would say yes.
Yeah, but there's definitely still a lot of investment in the product, and we're constantly coming out with new supplements and
yes.
new sections and new areas. So I think there's definitely a lot of positivity about investing in the amount of journalism that we're putting out there.
So something that stuck out for me was that piece in your section where you said about people paying premium for not having advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Just interested in the research behind that and the perception of your customers about that whole space.
Well, we did do a lot of research on it. Before we launched the freemium model, we spent a lot of time surveying existing customers and finding out as much information as we could about it, and that was kind of the thing that kept coming up as being one of a number of things that they were interested in. So actually access to curated content, ad-free definitely was of great interest to them, and exclusive things. So we've made sure that we've kind of looked not just at what we're producing in news perspective, but looking at like Guardian books and other areas where we're adding in exclusive extracts from books and things like that.
Yeah,
so.
we do a significant number of surveys, and we also do a lot of user testing.
Yeah. And
before we release new products, we also do beta testing anyway, and get lots of feedback from that before we release the final version. So in fact that's the thing probably we do most of actually, is audience and customer research.
We're really lucky. I know in previous roles that I've worked in that sometimes we haven't had as much access into the kind of testing and user experience type sides of things, but our product team are great about getting us involved. We have like UX labs within the building, and they're always telling us when they're doing them, so we can get really great feedback from like straight from existing customers, previous customers, and then also people who aren't our customers. So it really, really helps the decisions that we make.
Sticking with testing, I was really struck by the relative success of the long copy and the short copy letters on retention. Did you just split that and those the results, or did you research and test that as well?
I wasn't here, so
I can answer that.
I don't know if you can answer
we would
that.
have liked,
sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. We would have liked to. That's probably one of the areas where we would have liked to have done more research, really. But we did go out with it on a suck it and see basis, really. And then we took 2 weeks, and 2 weeks into it, the results were pretty clear by then. And so then we changed it all to the long copy. So, yeah.
Are you doing anything as sophisticated as looking at dwell time through the mobile app, so how much time people are spending on each story, so you can recommend content?
Yes, we do. Page views, how much time, how frequent, also,
when they're looking at it.
Yeah, when they're looking at it, what device they're using, all of those things. Yes.
And then are you going to be using that for content recommendation going forwards?
Yes, I mean things like also, what we want to encourage is we want people to sign in to get curated and personalised content. So there's lots of messaging around that as well. So yes, it's sort of encouragement really. You get more if you give us more information. So yes.
We use that as well to kind of make decisions about which, especially with our mobile products, which products we promote to people. So very much we're looking at people that are are reading like early in the morning on their way into work, we might promote editions to them. Similarly, if they're people that are taking a long time to read in the evening, we promote editions, whereas people that are kind of, we can see are more taking like quick snacks throughout the day, we promote our live apps to them. So it's definitely information that we use as well.
One of the things that interests me, is Chris Clark's my name, is the newspaper industry seems to be very, very tied up with circulation figures, and I think with the exception of the Independent Eye, they're generally heading in a gentle descent. But the page views are obviously heading the other way. I'm kind of curious to see what the world might look like in 3 years' time, and also what importance overall should be attached to maybe marketing your presence and the impact you make, as if you like the sum of the page view impressions plus the circulations, and perhaps get off of the focus on the circulation figures.
Yes, I think probably the reason that we're focused on circulation figures probably is because advertisers are as well. I mean, that's one of the things that they measure. Obviously, the audience and the mix of the audience is the other element of that. But I think, you know, because we're all members of the Audit Bureau of Circulation, we see that as a benchmark, whether it's digital or whether it's print at the moment. And you're right, you know, it's probably a measure that is more historic than anything else, but nobody really wants to move away from it for now because of ad rates and values and so on. I also have to say that The Guardian has actually increased in volume over the last 2 months, which is completely reverse of any trend. So we're really pleased about that. Obviously, we don't necessarily think that's going to continue, but we do think that we might be able to sustain that growth for longer. So.
I'm asking this question perhaps in the spirit of playful intelligence, although not my intelligence really, but I imagine that within any newspaper, like The Guardian, perhaps The Guardian in particular, there's a very high degree of brand loyalty within a certain really core readership. People who would perhaps regard themselves as Guardianistas. Yep. Do you envisage perhaps in the longer term developing almost a kind of membership model for a segment of the readership of The Guardian?
Yes, is the answer to that. Yes, we do envisage that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, because we have a lot of areas where The Guardian is really looking at the audience and drawing them in, and we want to aggregate that really. I mean, in the same way that there's sort of, we try to create subscriber benefits, and we want to do more of those. We want to broaden that out from the subscription. Extra, for example, is a sort of non-paid membership at the moment that we run off the website, and that's where you get sort of extra bonuses and you know, exclusive deals and competitions and so on. So what we want to do is to see how we progress that further, and make that sort of, you know, international and UK. So that is something that we are definitely developing.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about the concept of page views, or, you know, being something that advertisers are interested in. Is there an appetite, do you think, for talking about what types of content people are accessing? Say as a B2B advertiser, I'm interested in particular topics like financial services or legal. I think for a lot of advertisers, the specific content, whereas I'm not particularly interested in people who are looking at sport or perhaps art or culture. Yeah. But if you could segment your users by people who are accessing particular commercial content, yes, that would be of interest and relevance to advertisers rather than the old approach of just number of page views and, yes, and even dwell yes, time.
I think so. I mean, I think we are moving towards that. We've got now a unit within our ad department which is called Guardian Direct Response, and that's all about that, trying to deliver audiences, so audiences for culture, for example, who visits those sorts of articles, the sites, etc., who takes up those offers, are the audience that's then delivered to advertising, because all of this, as well as, you know, working with our consumer customers, we're also delivering that audience to advertisers as well, so that we are quite conscious of that. And because you know, as we all know, direct marketing is much more accountable, and advertisers, particularly in newspaper terms, want to know, you know, exactly what they're getting, and it can be quite difficult. I think this sort of area is quite appealing really for advertisers, so we are trying to match that need.
So, as a chair, I'm afraid I always hate stifling questions. Great to have an interactive audience. Thank you very much, Anne and Lucy.